talk presenter and political commentator Peter Cardwell, who's also here. A very good afternoon to you.
Hi, Julia.
Now, as you know, normally on a Wednesday we get you to watch PMQ, so we don't have to, because often it can be a bit of a yawnsville, whether there are any highlights or not. You are here with some of the highlights because we took it live. I have to say, we thought Kemi Badenoch was going to go in hard. She was on fire yesterday, on fire today. I very much don't think these two people like each other, Keir Starmer.
They certainly don't. They certainly don't. And he did all he could. You've seen the trans answers because I know you took them live a little bit earlier this hour. But in the rest of those exchanges, it was all about Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, because he, of course, gave this talk. He thought it was private to a Conservative.
Did he?
Yeah, well.
No, let's explain the context for people who've got lives.
So the University College London has a Conservative association. These are students.
I'm surprised by that. London University.
So am I. But they asked Robert Jenrick to come along. He spoke to them. He said that he wanted closer ties with reform, and certainly he wanted some sort of unity in terms of what the election would be.
And I want the fight to be united, one way or another. I'm determined to do that, to end and to bring this coalition together and make sure we unite as a nation as well. Basically, don't have Tories and reform
fighting against one another.
Out, and
so
then,
maybe something like maybe something like 2019 with the Brexit Party. Yes, he said, and then you head towards the general election, where the nightmare scenario is that Keir Starmer sails in through the middle as a result of the two parties being disunited. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared for that to happen.
I mean, now again, he keeps making statements that somehow become made public. What a silly mistake to make yet again and again.
Yes.
But this was very much brought up by the Prime Minister in one exchange. Let's have a little watch and a listen to this exchange.
Shadow Justice Secretary is not here, a man who's doing everything he can to replace her. The man that most of them want as leader of their party has admitted that Reform and the Tories are working together. He said, I want this fight to be united. He said he's determined to bring this coalition, he calls it, together one way or another. Well, I think we know what that means. Every Tory voter is appalled at the thought of paying for the NHS. Every Reform voter who hates what the Tories did the last 14 years. They're not Conservatives, they're a con.
Who's playing political football now? He's got no answers, Mr. Speaker. He's got no answers. Yesterday, Labour MP after Labour MP challenged the ruling. He should be more worried about his backbenchers than my frontbenchers.
Interesting to start with an answer from Keir
Yes,
Starmer.
well, I'm going to do that again in the next clip as well, because this kept going and he kept mentioning Nigel Farage. He kept saying that there was...
All the questions were about the trans ruling. Let's say the women's rights ruling, the factual biological ruling from the Supreme Court last week. And Kemi Badenoch went on. It was all about asking the Prime Minister, you know, did he accept that he was wrong? Will he apologise? And her role. And she has been. I mean, the Tories did a pretty poor job in government, but as Equality and Women's Minister for a number of years, she was absolutely on the spot on this and was doing stuff behind the scenes and working hard. But he kept going back to Robert Jenrick. He kept going back to reform. He mentioned the Nigel Farage repeatedly, the MP for Clacton. But this was, for him, this was all about local elections next Thursday.
Yes, I think there are two leaders of the Conservative Party at the moment. There's Kemi Badenoch and there's Robert Jenrick, and she clearly has no control over Robert Jenrick. Keir Starmer knows that's her weak spot. He knows the trans debate, the women's rights debate is his weak spot. She asked all 6 questions on that, really for the last 2, and including this clip now. He basically ignored her and kept talking about Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick.
Which is kind of what PMQs usually ends up being, isn't it? But let's have a watch and listen to this clip too.
Shadow Justice Secretary and the member for Clacton cook up their joint manifesto. In 6 short months, she's lost control of her party.
Mr. Speaker, he's clearly so uncomfortable talking about this subject. Yes. This is a choice between a Conservative Party that stood up for common sense and a Labour Party that bent the knee to every passing fad. This is a question about moral courage, Mr. Speaker, about doing the right thing even when it is difficult. And the truth is, he doesn't have the balls.
I can only assume that sounded better when she did it in the mirror earlier on. But the truth is, it doesn't really matter what the Leader of the Opposition says, because nobody believes, none of them, that she's going to lead them into the next election anyway. It's going to be the Shadow Justice Secretary. He's away plotting. That's why he's not here today, Mr. Speaker. and the member for Clacton fighting over the bones of the Tory party. The member for Clacton's going to do what he always does, eat the Tory party for breakfast.
Fascinating that in questions from a woman about biological reality, a woman, the male Prime Minister spent the entire time talking about two other men.
Yeah.
Totally irrelevant to that issue. Now, it was interesting that, of course, Robert Jebb, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was not there. Look, no one is under illusions that he's not on manoeuvres.
Completely.
And that although Kemi Badenoch has played an absolute blinder this week, there is an element where, you know, a lot of people feel, and certainly the polls suggest that she hasn't quite made the grade in terms of you know, leading the Tories. We know Reform are riding above in the polls repeatedly. In terms of the likelihood of any deal being done, we go back to you know, Lib Lab pacts. You know, I can remember from my lifetime, you know, in the 70s, we talk about you know, what happened in 2019, and Nigel Farage is very, very clear that his fingers were burnt that time.
Yes.
He stood down his Brexit Party candidates in hundreds of seats, and that is one of the reasons why Boris Johnson won that big majority. He felt that he was betrayed by Boris Johnson in terms of the Brexit that was delivered. He said, never again. Do you believe him?
I don't, and I think that I don't believe Kemi Badenoch, and that she says there will be no coalition or electoral pact or
even
whatever.
Just unofficial, we won't stand in the seat you're strong in, you don't stand in the one we're strong in.
Possibly, and those deals are done, or we'll take the foot off the gas in some of those different fights. What's going to be really interesting, not often I say this, what's going to be really interesting is the Welsh Senedd election next year.
No one has literally ever said that before, including in Wales.
Because I think Reform are going to do really well. I think they could be in government, possibly in coalition with the Conservatives, maybe even as the largest party in the Welsh Senedd after those elections. It's going up from 66 to 92. If that happens in Wales, Kemi Badenoch will be in a really tricky position. And that's if she lasts that long.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people are saying that after next year's local election. We know that the Tories are predicted to do badly in these local elections because the last time these seats were fought was at a high mark.
Peak Boris.
Peak Boris in 2021, you know, just survived, you know, COVID and the like.
Well, it was the Hartley-Brewer by-election as well when Keir Starmer thought about standing down at one point. So, you know, the Conservatives will do...
Look at what could have been, everybody. Look at what you could have won.
The Conservatives will do badly. Labour will do fine, better, and Reform will do very well.
Just finally, really briefly, I was really intrigued by, you know, calls from Kemi Badenoch on the trans issue for the Prime Minister to apologise, accept he was wrong. That's just not his temperament, is it? He's not a man. We were saying earlier, if he forgot to buy milk and there's a text message saying, I'll buy milk, he would never admit he was wrong when he didn't buy the milk.
That's very true. And I think that they're both very strong characters, certainly, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that as time goes on.
Absolutely. Fascinating. Really great to have you in, Peter Cardwell. Great clips there.